Hi, everyone. My name is Bionik. I'm a composer, producer, performer, and teaching artist from the Twin Cities. I'm really happy to be here at the Ordways educational YouTube channel, sharing some of my teaching practices with you. A little bit of my history is I am a McKnight Composer Fellow, I'm a COMPAS teaching artist, and I'm a cultural specialist for St. Paul Public Schools. Also, I have a lot of songs and music in movies, television, video games, and commercials. So you've probably heard my music before, but you don't know my name. The art form I'm going to be presenting today is song making, and specifically how to help a group tell their story through the creation of an original song. I really like to start my practice with engagement. And that means getting to know people and building trust with them. I think it's a good way to learn if you have some trust built between the person that's passing some information along and the person that's receiving it. So engagement is my first teaching tool. When I get into a space with a classroom or with a group of people in an elder facility or a group of teens in a high school, I want to get to know them and what matters to them. And that ultimately is the best pathway for me as a teacher to transfer some information to them, is to build that trust initially. Engagement first, then transfer of information. So engagement is very important to me. When I go into a class, I instantly start asking questions. If I'm early and someone's there, I start with them. What's your name? What are you into? What music do you like? Do you play video games? Do you draw? Do you dance? Do you write? Trying to elicit some kind of a trust. And usually if you ask enough questions, people want to tell you what they're feeling and what they're thinking. You just have to be really receptive and really open. So again, that's my number one tool in my toolbox for teaching. When I get into a group and I want to make a song with them, we start by finding a common theme. And that's something that everyone in the class or in the room can relate to in one way or another. It can be difficult when there's a big group of people, but I've found a couple ways that we can come to a consensus, and 9 times out of 10, everyone is very happy to be involved in this group collaborative effort, even if it wasn't their specific idea that fueled what the theme was. One of the devices I use when I start figuring out what the theme of the song is going to be with the group is the 5 W's. And often when I ask this question, people don't know what I'm talking about. Have you ever heard of the 5 W's? Even though you've all heard it, for some reason, you think there's a complicated answer that you don't know. Then I say, who? And then everyone starts shouting out all the rest of the answers, old or young. It's the same experience. People doubt themselves constantly. So we go through this process where I ask what the story is about. I like to start with what, because if we know what the story is about, it's a lot easier for the group to come to some agreement on the other elements. So I'll ask the group, what are some things that the story could be about? And it could be something that's joyful, or it could be something that's sorrowful, scary. I've worked on songs from every topic you could imagine, like police brutality, racism, and hot Takis. You can't imagine all of the different things that people feel strongly about and they're willing to use as a vehicle to convey their emotions. So I get ideas from the group and I write them down. And I try to get as many as possible because this is a good way for people to feel some buy-in to the process. Their ideas are being heard. Their feelings are being heard. So I'll ask the group, what's the story about? And then I'll write all the answers down, and then I'll say, let's take a vote. And I go through all of the topics that they came up with, and I tally the votes, and then I say, it looks like this is what you all chose. And then usually there's a resounding applause and everyone's into it. There might be a couple groans, old or young. So Then after figuring out what the story is about, I move on to who. Who's telling the story? Is it a narrator? Is it a person that's not even involved in the story? Maybe it's an inanimate object. Maybe it's first person. Maybe it's the person that's going through whatever it is that the story is about. And often when I lay out those suggestions, those prompts, people start to get very creative, and they say a bumblebee passing by, or a rock that's looking at a river, or a bullet in a gun telling the story. And then we start to talk about metaphor and analogy, and in writing devices, how one thing being like another, or the perspective of an inanimate object, how powerful that could be, as an analogy for something else, for taking a life, for instance. So then after we come to a bunch of ideas of who's telling the story, we take a vote. I tally the votes, circle that answer, moved on to where is this story happening? Is it the top of a mountain? Is it the bottom of the ocean? Is it the Milky Way galaxy? Is it the corner of 3rd and Main Street? It can be very specific or very general. We go through the same process, get the participants' ideas, vote, and tally the votes, circle the answer, move on to where is this happening? Same thing, going through a very specific point like 1965, or a here and now, very general kind of idea of when it could be happening. Get the votes, get the ideas from the participants, tally the votes. You see the process here. Then we get to, why are they telling this story? Why is this person telling this? Why is this, the object or the person telling this story? Is it to invite people in? Is it to warn them about circumstances they shouldn't be involved in? Is it to celebrate, or is it to mourn? That's kind of an important part of telling the story, is knowing what the tone of the emotion is. What the story is about is different than why you are telling the story. Can be very different. So we go through these 5 W's, and then I read off to everyone, okay, here's what the story is about, who's telling it, when it's happening, where it's happening, and why it's happening. And then I write that down on a piece of paper, on the board, and then this is the writing guide for the group's exercise. They now have kind of a template for their story. And if they talk about all of the things that are in this template, if you tell people what the story is about and why it's happening and where and when, then they're going to understand your story completely. And not only are they going to understand it, it's going to be relatable to them. And when they're sad and it's raining, they're going to relate to your song, if that's what your song is about. If you can put them in that time and place and relate to them so that they can feel like they're a part of that story, that's really what a great song or poem or piece of choreography or book or movie is really about, is transporting us in that way. So then after we come up with our theme, we have some questions that we have to ask. And when we ask these questions to the group, I'm using some terminology, some technical terminology. This is another part of now we've built some engagement with the group. Now the group has shared things, and we've all debated, we've voted, we've moaned and groaned and laughed, just in the course of a few minutes, kind of figuring out this process. So now is when I can start transferring some information. So I start asking more questions. This time it's not about them per se, it's if they know things, know terminology. So for instance, let's say that this song that they came up with is about, let's make it something about joy, just because. It's about joy. So then I say to them, okay, so if our song is about joy, then is this a slow or a fast song? And then often a couple people say, oh, it's slow, or it's in between. But then I say, how many people know what a metronome is? Oh, yeah, somebody maybe says, I play piano and I use a metronome to play piano. So I say a metronome is what keeps time, and it tells you how fast the beat is. The tempo of the beat is what they call it. So if this is a joyful song, is this a slow song where we're walking slowly along with the beat? Or is it a fast song that you would maybe move your body to or stroll down the street? Automatically, people know, young, old, that joyful usually means a faster tempo. It isn't a rule, but it sure is something that is tried and true. So maybe this is a little too fast. So then I play it and I say, I'm going to slow it down. Is this too fast or too slow? And then they're like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, think about where you would clap to this. If you were going to 1, 2, 1, 2. And then somebody says slower, slower, or faster. So then I'll slow the tempo down. And I'll say, what do you think about that? How does that feel? Clap again. 1, 2, 1, 2. Then we come to some kind of consensus with the group, finding what the tempo is going to be. And so right there, we've talked about tempo, we've talked about the metronome, and we've talked about what emotion fits with what speed. And not only that, if the group decides it's slow, then we go slow, and when we work in that way, because there is no right answer or wrong answer when you're creating. It's all about finding the pathway that yields a result where the sum is bigger than all the parts put together. So now we've determined that our song is maybe 100 beats per minute, and we know what the metronome is. And now we come to the part where we start thinking about if the music is going to fit with the story theme. So the first thing that I usually do is pull up a piano. Everybody knows a piano. It's a pretty common instrument. So when I bring it up, they're not turned off by it or feel weird about it. So I will play a chord on a piano usually and say, okay, our song is about joy. And I'll go, now does that sound like a joyful chord? Or does this sound like a joyful chord? Again, the group often individually has their own feelings about things, but in general, minor usually means sad, contemplative, melancholy, nostalgic. Major means happy, hopeful, exuberant. So since this song is about joy, I would say we go with a major chord to create this song. So these are the first steps that I take when I'm working with the group and I want to create an original piece of music with them. After going through a short introduction and letting them know who I am, we usually go through the engagement part really quickly. We find our theme by using the 5 W's. And then we start to put together what the basic bones of this piece of music that's going to accompany their story is. So now, the reason that I jumped to this music making part of it, because this is a 2-part video that I'm going to be presenting. The first video is about finding a theme for a story with the group, and the second video is going to be about creating a piece of emotionally appropriate music that goes along with their story. But for the group to start writing their original lyrics and coming up with melodies and phrases, they need to know the tempo of the song, and they need to know some kind of structure, what key it's in, what the beat's going to be like. So we have to go through this beginning kind of process just to get it going before we dive into making the music. So the first thing I'm going to do is just record a little piece of this major piano melody, and that'll give the artists in the room something to write about. So here I'm going to do that right now. So I just use this little clip right here that I just created, and I'm going to quantize it now, which means the computer helps me put it on the nearest beat, which is good because I'm only a human being and I don't play everything perfectly. So now I'm going to play this back and take a listen to it and see what it sounds like. All right, so we'll be back with another video, and we're going to explore making the music for the group's theme. Thanks a lot.